Hello, Movie Crusaders, and welcome to our latest episode. My name's Sean Wasserkrug, and today I'm going to be reviewing Christopher Nolan's Oppenheimer. Now, I am a fan of Christopher Nolan, but I'm not one of those Christopher Nolan super fans. I think when his movies are good, they are really, really good, and when they aren't, they're just average at best. I think his Batman trilogy is solid as hell. Obviously, I love The Dark Knight, Batman Begins, Dark Knight Rises. I actually defend, even though I know it's a messy film. I actually like those. I think Inception, to me, is still probably my favorite Nolan film that isn't The Dark Knight. But I think and of course, The Prestige. I love The Prestige so much. But I feel like the last few Nolan films have not really hit them. I think Interstellar is ambitious but kind of doesn't hit all the marks the way it should. I think it's better now than it was when I first saw it in theaters. Dunkirk, I think, is overrated as shit. I don't think it's that good of a movie. Tenet, I wanted to really like, but ultimately just didn't really care about anything that was happening in the film. And I know there's one more I'm missing lately. But yeah, it's just Nolan, he does have his tropes, but even the worst Nolan film is still better than a lot of films out there. So with Oppenheimer, I wasn't necessarily excited for this because it's like, oh, cool, it's the guy who made the atomic bomb, which should be interesting. But it wasn't a movie that was grabbing me or making me excited to go see it, other than it's Christopher Nolan, so I know this is going to be interesting and probably very loud because Nolan loves his loud music. But what sold me on wanting to see this, and what sold me on wanting to see this and actually being excited for it, is Cillian Murphy. I love Cillian Murphy. I've been championing this guy to be a lead ever. I mean, granted, he was the lead in 28 Days, later, and I think, was it 28 Weeks Later? I think he was only the lead really for the first one, though. But he's always playing this, especially in Nolan movies, he's always playing this side character like Scarecrow, or a small role here, small role there, and no one ever really gives Cillian Murphy the lead role and says, this is your movie, take it. And Nolan is actually finally doing that with Oppenheimer. And I was so excited because this guy is due to have this lead kind of role and this lead to say, this is me. I'm a freaking rock star actor. And I think everyone needs to start noticing that. So that was really what led me to be excited to see this movie. Now, it is a Nolan film. And because of this film being a true story and stuff like that, the cast list is massive. There are so many actors and actresses in this. Well, mainly actors. There's about 2 or 3 actresses that actually get noticed in this film. It's mostly just male actors. Granted, time of where the movie was shot, but it would take me forever just to run through everyone that's in this movie. Some people are in it a good part, and some people are in it 2 or 3 scenes. Some people, did they need to be in this movie for 2 or 3 scenes? No, I think they just really wanted to be a part of a Nolan film. But there are definitely some standouts in here. This is definitely a film that is going to be around during the Oscar race season, when the Oscar race season happens, whenever the hell that's going to be because of the strike. But one thing I will say is Nolan made me give a shit about the atomic bomb. He made me care about a guy named John Robert Oppenheimer and his trials and tribulations and his story. Because honestly, I don't think if anyone else did this film, I would have really cared that much. Cillian Murphy puts on a phenomenal performance as Oppenheimer. He really goes out and does exactly what I was hoping he was do and knock this out of the park. Like I said, I've championed this actor for so long. Whether it's something in Peaky Blinders or fucking Red Eye, which he was great in, which not enough people have seen Red Eye. If you guys haven't, you guys need to check out Red Eye. But I'm so happy to see Cillian Murphy go out and not only just put on a great acting performance, but become James Robert Oppenheimer in this film. Like, it got to the point where I wasn't seeing Cillian Murphy anymore. I was just seeing the character. And there's a few people in this movie that made me feel that way. And I mean that in a great way, because he's doing such a great acting job that I no longer see the actor. I see just the performance as it is. And Cillian Murphy knocks this movie out of the park. The other big name, there's a lot of big names, but the other big name that stands out that I think also could potentially be in the running to win the Oscar, if not a front runner, and that is Robert Downey Jr. as Louis Strauss. Outside of like a brief shot of him in the trailer, I didn't even know he was in this movie that much. He is such a prominent, important character in this film, and the storyline of Oppenheimer goes a couple ways. And Robert Downey Jr.'s performance in this is fantastic, but most people only know him as Iron Man. Robert Downey Jr.'s performance in this, like I said, I've known him for his performances before Iron Man, back when he was Charlie Chaplin and Chaplin, to many, many other great acting roles. But a lot of people just look at him as Tony Stark. And while he's fantastic in the Iron Man and Avengers films, you only can act so much in those movies. And I don't mean that in a negative way. I mean that in a positive way as well. But it's Robert Downey Jr. since Endgame. I mean, all he's really done is, you got like the Sherlock movies, and you've got Doolittle, which was atrocious. This was a movie that you got to see Robert Downey Jr. just go out there and just kill this role. I think he is fantastic in this. I don't want to go deeper into his role because I don't want to spoil things. Yes, I know this is a true story and stuff like that, but his performance is so just amazing with what I got to watch in it, that you, once again, you weren't watching. I had to like pull myself out going, holy crap, Robert Downey Jr. is killing this role, because I was watching this character. And like I said, for most people in this movie, Nolan is getting A-plus performances out of everyone in this film. Emily Blunt, who plays Kitty Oppenheimer, Oppenheimer's wife in the film, I will say she's got more to do in the second half of the film than she does in the first half. I will say in the first half she's just kind of a drunk, bitchy wife, which I hate that, for her. But in the second act, they definitely give her a lot more to work on, and she actually has some great scenes, some great performances throughout this. Alden Ehrenreich as a Senate aide. He doesn't have, I don't think he has, I can't remember if he actually has a real name in this movie. He's with Robert Downey Jr.'s Strauss through through the whole film. He's great in this. And I've never been someone who's thought Alden Ehrenreich was a bad actor, but he, probably one of his best performances I've seen so far in this. Jason Clarke as Roger Robb, this guy, this lawyer who's basically during a hearing, because there's two storylines that's going on. You've got Oppenheimer basically starting with his eye about wanting to see where physics can go. And I know I'm saying the wrong kind of physics, but I'm just quantum physics. Bear with me here, guys. But to his growth into becoming a name to the point where he gets hired on for the Manhattan Project, and then his building of the bomb. And then you've got this storyline where, and this is the thread line throughout even the past scenes through all the movie, is that Oppenheimer's constantly being looked at or accused of being a communist. And while we have the storyline about him building the bomb with everybody, there's also this through line of him and Strauss basically being, it's not a trial, and they like to mention that throughout the whole movie, it's a hearing about him having to defend himself, or him basically kind of being on trial for being a communist, and Strauss also kind of being on trial, even though it's a hearing, about why he would give someone like Oppenheimer the ability to do the things he's done while him being considered to be a communist. So you have these storylines, and the Robert Downey Jr. side of the films is shot completely in black and white, and the Oppenheimer side's shot in completely color, so you always know where we're going in terms of the film for that. But Jason Clarke, who plays Roger Robb, he is the lawyer who is questioning Oppenheimer throughout the film. He's great in the movie. Kenneth Branagh as Niels Bohr. He's only got like 2 or 3 scenes in the film, but he kills it in his small part in the film. David Krumholtz. He plays Isidore Rabi. I probably said that name wrong. I apologize. He's great in the film. Tom Conti as Albert Einstein. Great in the film. Josh Hartnett. Some of these names, I'm just like so excited to see them in these movies. Josh Hartnett as Ernest Lawrence. He's great in the film. Florence Pugh, the other female in the movie, who plays Jean Tatlock. Her character is definitely interesting, to say the least. Especially the scenes that she's in. I do wish we would have gotten a little more of her character, because her character was very interesting in terms of how she interacted with Oppenheimer and how she pushes Oppenheimer and kind of always keeps Oppenheimer on his toes. But we don't get as much as we want with her in terms of her character, because obviously just the way the storyline goes, she's in a very, very small part of his life, and she's someone that we go back to a couple times, but I do feel like she was missing 1 or 2 more scenes that really could have added to Florence Pugh's performance overall. I think she's great in the film in the small parts we get her, but I really kind of wanted to see a little bit more of her character in terms of acting up against Cillian Murphy. Trying to think of other people. Oh yeah, obviously Matt Damon. Matt Damon as Leslie Groves, the guy who hires Oppenheimer onto the Manhattan Project. He definitely brings more of the comedic element to the film. But Matt Damon's great. But he is the one actor throughout the film that, like I said, with Cillian Murphy and Robert Downey Jr., who I felt became their characters. Matt Damon, I always knew it was Matt Damon throughout the film. There was never a moment where I was like, man, Groves is great. It's like, no, it's like Matt Damon is great through the film. Josh Peck, Jack Quaid, Benny Safdie, of all people, as Edward Teller. That was a performance I wasn't preparing to be as good as it was. There are so many. Rami Malek, Casey Affleck is great in the film in his small role. There are so many great small roles in this movie, but honestly, it all comes down to Cillian Murphy, Robert Downey Jr., Emily Blunt to a point, Matt Damon's performances. All these guys and girls are putting on a fantastic performance throughout this film, and this is a stellar acting thing all the way through for Oppenheimer. Visually, like I said, you've got the color aspects of the past when they're building the bomb, to a kind of a mundane color tone when Oppenheimer's being questioned, to the black and white when Robert Downey Jr. is on screen at all times. You have these color dynamics. Whether or not they work all the time, that's up to you. But I do think visually this movie looks fantastic. Obviously, when we get to the big moment, which is the Trinity test, where they test the bomb the first time, that's the main event scene throughout this film. It is amazing. The sound design for that scene, not every time in the movie, but the sound design for that scene is fantastic. Nolan, just like with Dunkirk and with Tenet, Nolan's sound design tends to go a little too over the top, to the point where you have a hard time hearing dialogue from people in the movie. I only really heard that a little bit in the beginning, not so much in the middle towards the end. But I think when the sound design works, Nolan and the people he's got for it, which I think it was I'll butcher this poor man's name, and I apologize. It's Ludwig. Ludwig Göransson. I'm sorry. This he's fantastic, but the sound design is great. Cinematography is great throughout the film as well. This movie looks fantastic. It is 3 hours long, and because of that, I'm not going to say that there are slow moments, because it's a historical film. It's a biographical film. There's a lot of just straight sitting around and talking, but it was interesting as hell to watch this. It was intriguing. It was tense in terms of its dialogue, because we know the stakes that are involved in what they're trying to do here. So I was never dull or bored during the 3 hours, but there were certain times where I felt like there needed to be some levity to breathe at certain points. Obviously, this is a movie about the building of the atomic bomb, so there's not really any action in the film, which you don't need action. But for a Nolan movie to not have action, it's a little weird. But this movie is very well done. It's very well done. I do think, like I said, Emily Blunt's performance in the second half is great, but in the first half, I didn't really like the writing of her character. Florence Pugh, like I said, she needed more time. There are certain moments or certain things that I think they could have done a little bit better, especially a kind of almost like a PTSD thing with Oppenheimer in the film. I like the concept and the idea of it, but the sound design of it drove me insane. I really couldn't stand the sound design when we were getting those scenes. It's only like 2 or 3 scenes, but it kept taking me out of the movie because I was paying attention to how the sound was, and it didn't make me feel, I think, what we wanted me to feel. There's some nudity in the film that just felt, even though the people that are nude in it, I'm not negative on how they look, because they look great, but it was just awkward and weird to be thrown into the movie. It felt like it wasn't necessarily needed, which is weird for me to say nudity wasn't needed in the film, but they felt like they were thrown in more for shock factor, but it just kind of, to me, just felt like an unnecessary add-on to the film. It doesn't discourage the movie in any way. It just felt like, were they needed? I don't think they were needed. I think these characters could have still talked while wearing clothes, and it wouldn't have been as distracting. I don't know. But it just, at the end of the day, as much as I liked seeing certain people in their nude, it was just yeah, that was weird, and I don't know if they needed to have that in the film. They could have done that film or with them in their bra and panties or in their boxers instead of them being fully nude because I was distracted, obviously for that scene. Um, but yeah, it's like I said, Oppenheimer in terms of performances is the best you're gonna get all year. Probably up next to Air in terms of performances overall. Another Matt Damon film. Like I said, the 3 hours, it's a long watch, and it's a tense watch all the way throughout. So if you're a Nolan fan, I think you're going to enjoy the film. But if you're wanting a Nolan movie to be like his other Nolan films, you might be a little disappointed, or you might embrace that and love it even more. So it kind of depends on what kind of a Nolan fan you are. If you're a fan though of Cillian Murphy, this is a must watch. You must go out of your way to watch Cillian Murphy and Robert Downey Jr. because these are the two big standouts of this film. These are the two that are going, maybe even Emily Blunt, especially for the second half of her performance. These performances are definitely going to be up around Oscar season, and they might win because they are fantastic performances overall through all the way through. It looks great. Sound design is a little over the place, but that's Nolan to a nutshell. It's either really good or it's missed opportunities. But overall, Oppenheimer is a 3-hour film that is worth the price of admission. It is worth seeing in theaters. It is worth taking that 3 hours and watching the story that, honestly, like I said, without Nolan and the performances of these characters, I probably wouldn't have cared about. I probably wouldn't have seen this movie otherwise. But everyone in this film is going out of the way to put on the best performances they can for the audiences and for Nolan and everyone that's coming to pay tickets to see this movie. And obviously the box office alone has shown that people are appreciating this. So if you want to see one of the best acted films of the year, hands down, you should go out of the way to see Oppenheimer. I guarantee you for 3 hours, you're going to be interested. You're not going to be bored. And it's going to be, I wouldn't say a fun ride, but definitely an intellectual ride, to say the least. I'm going to give Oppenheimer a 92%. Definitely worth checking out in theaters. I would not wait to see this at home. I hope you guys enjoyed this review. If you guys did, go ahead and hit that like, share, and subscribe button to the channel so you guys stay up to date with all the latest videos pop up on the Movie Crusaders. And of course, remember to follow us on all the social media outlets you see below. Out right now, we have a review for They Cloned Tyrone and Barbie. We also have last week's The Weekly Crusaders, as well as this week's The Weekly Crusaders will be out later in the week, where Brian Michaels and myself talk about 2 movies that came out during this week in movie history. Also this week, Haunted Mansion comes out, so we'll have a review for that. So we got plenty of videos on the channel for you guys to check out. I think we're also nearing 500 videos on the channel. So we got plenty of videos for you guys to watch and check out. I hope you guys enjoy most of them to a point. But we're going to keep plugging away. We're going to keep doing this. Our fan base is growing slowly but surely. We hope you guys still stick around and check us all out while we keep writing, watching these movies and having fun talking about these movies, Brian and Michaels and myself. But until next time, in case I don't see you, go watch some movies and go have some fun.
You're still here. It's over. Go home.